Relay access granted. Archive access granted. Channel 9. Episode 2. The Missing Call.
I didn't sleep after Elk Ridge. I tried. God knows I tried. I went home around sunrise, locked every door in the house, turned on every light in the living room, and spent the next 6 hours staring at a television that wasn't even plugged in. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard it. 3 knocks. Slow. Patient. Like somebody standing on the other side of a door waiting for permission. The worst part wasn't the knocking. The worst part was what came after. My brain kept asking the same question. What would have happened if I'd opened the hatch? I wish I could tell you I stopped wondering. I didn't. Even now, part of me still wants to know. That's the thing about fear nobody tells you. The longer you survive it, the more it starts looking like curiosity. By the time my next shift started, I'd almost convinced myself I'd imagined half of what happened. Almost. Then I walked into dispatch and realized everyone else was scared too. Not openly. Nobody was panicking. Nobody was talking about Mercer. Nobody was talking about Briar Road. Nobody was talking about Relay 9. But the room felt wrong, like a church after a funeral. People kept checking the clocks, not their phones, not their watches. The clocks, every few minutes, waiting. For what? I had no idea. But they were all waiting for something. And after a while, I realized I was too. Around 11:30, Mara dropped a manila folder onto my desk. No explanation, no greeting, just a folder. Then she leaned close and whispered, "Don't let the radios hear this." I remember staring at her for a second because that's not a sentence normal people say. Then she walked away, and I opened the file. The first page was dated October 17th, 1987. Across the top were the words, Relay 9 Incident. That got my attention. The second thing that got my attention was the fact that somebody had tried to burn half the report. The third thing was the cassette tape attached to the back. Call 3. Nothing else. No explanation, no warning. Just those 2 words. Call 3. At the time, I thought the tape was the scary part. It wasn't. The scary part was what the report described. It called them missing calls. Emergency calls that somehow vanished. Not deleted. Not lost. Vanished. Dispatchers remembered taking them. Deputies remembered responding. Victims remembered making them. But the recordings disappeared. The logs disappeared. The evidence disappeared. Like somebody was reaching backward through time and cutting pieces out. The report documented 6 calls from a woman named Helen Ashcroft. A farmhouse outside Elk Ridge. Something walking around her property. Simple enough. Except every call disappeared except one. Call 3. The tape attached to the file. The only surviving record. I spent nearly an hour staring at it before I finally worked up the nerve to listen. The storage room seemed like the safest place. I don't know why. Maybe because it didn't have windows. Maybe because it felt disconnected from the rest of the building. Maybe because fear makes you do stupid things. The old tape player looked older than I was. Dust covered every corner. The plastic had yellowed with age. I slid the cassette into place, pressed play, and listened. At first it was just static. Then a woman spoke. Terrified. Breathing hard. Trying not to cry. "Please don't hang up." A dispatcher answered. Calm. Professional. The kind of voice people trust. For a minute the conversation sounded normal. Then the woman asked, "Did they catch him?" The dispatcher sounded confused. "Catch who?" "The man from the first call." Silence. Then, "Ma'am, this is the first call we've received tonight." The woman stopped breathing, not literally but close. Then she whispered, "No." I'll never forget that word because it didn't sound confused. It sounded defeated, like somebody discovering the world no longer worked the way it should. The dispatcher kept asking questions. The woman stopped answering. Instead, she asked something else, a question that made every hair on my arm stand up. "Can you hear him?" The dispatcher said no. The woman started crying. Then the tape picked up another sound. A voice, hidden beneath the static. Faint, impossible to understand, but definitely there. The dispatcher never reacted. The woman did, immediately. Oh, God. The voice grew louder, closer, like somebody walking toward her. Then she whispered, "He's inside now." The recording ended. The tape clicked. Silence. I sat there staring at the machine, trying to decide whether I'd actually heard what I thought I'd heard. Then the tape clicked again. There shouldn't have been anything left. But another recording started anyway. Static filled the room. Then a voice emerged. My voice. "Caleb." I nearly dropped the recorder. The voice continued, distorted, broken, like it was being transmitted from somewhere very far away. "You're listening to the wrong call." The fluorescent lights overhead flickered, once, twice. Then every light in the storage room went dark. At the exact same moment, every radio in dispatch activated. The entire building exploded with static. I ran out of the storage room. Half the dispatchers were already on their feet. Some looked terrified. Others looked resigned, like they'd been expecting this. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The static continued. Then a voice emerged. Soft, calm, way too calm. "Incoming call." Every monitor in dispatch lit up. Not one, all of them. The same caller ID appeared on every screen. Unknown origin. The call automatically connected. Nobody answered it. Nobody touched a radio. Nobody had to. The voice came through anyway. A woman. Breathing hard. Terrified. My stomach dropped because I'd heard that voice before. Less than 10 minutes earlier. The recording. The tape. The woman from 1987. Helen Ashcroft. The room went silent. Even the static seemed to pull back. Listening. Waiting. Helen's voice trembled. "Please." Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then she spoke again. "If anyone can hear me, don't let him answer the third call." I looked at Mara. Mara looked at me, and suddenly I knew. This wasn't a recording. This wasn't a replay. This was happening, right now, 40 years too late. I grabbed the nearest microphone. "Who?" For a moment, I thought she hadn't heard me. Then she answered. One sentence, 6 words that still keep me awake at night. "Caleb, he's already heard it." The line went dead. The caller ID vanished. Every monitor returned to normal. The radios fell silent. Nobody in dispatch spoke. Nobody moved. Then I looked down and noticed something sitting on my desk. A manila folder, different from the one Mara gave me. Older, burned around the edges. The label on the front read, "Relay 9 Incident." Case file, Caleb Rusk. Date opened, October 17th, 1987. I was born in 1984, and that's when I realized something. This hadn't started when I found Relay 9. It hadn't started at Elk Ridge. It hadn't even started with Mercer. Somehow, whatever was happening to me had already been happening for decades. Then I noticed something else. Something typed beneath the date. Something I hadn't seen before. 3 words. "Third call pending." I stared at it for a long time, because I could have sworn I'd already heard the third call.